Welcome back. Um, this one's for the road.
You
This
need one
is
one for the road.
be our last one as colleagues.
I know.
Um, maybe over the summer. We still got to do that kayak trip
I
or
know
that
exactly. I got the I
canoe.
got it all
Yeah.
geared up.
Um, but yeah, I guess I don't know. First question, man. What time did you get to work today?
Today?
Yeah,
6.
You got here at 6 a.m.
I had a lot to do. I had
Oh
a lot
my
to do
God.
today. Well, but I'm taking off at noon, so I
Oh,
have the
okay,
afternoon
okay,
off, so I had stuff to
okay,
get done before the weekend, but
okay. When did you get here yesterday?
yeah, 6.
Oh, geez.
But I got lots to do. I'm trying to get geared up for next year a little bit
This is
because
this is why he's the
no,
MVP.
I'm because I know September is going to be crazy.
Ah, okay, yes, yes.
Because I know,
But
because I
I
got
mean, normally you'd get here at 7 or
yeah,
6.
yeah, somewhere in there, somewhere in there.
Just business as
Yeah,
usual, just more urgency, more
exactly,
like gotta cram more in. Okay,
exactly.
okay.
Because we're expecting for anybody that's watching that didn't know, we got twins on the way come probably September. So
Mr. Murphy's gonna be the dad of 5 children,
5 kids. Can
and
you believe that? I can't
that's
believe
that,
that.
that's awesome.
5 kids. Yeah,
Um,
we're really excited. We're getting really excited. So yeah, I kind of know it's going to be crazy come
hmm
September. So I'm kind of
hmm
trying to like get
hmm
geared up.
you're having you're having 2 girls.
2 girls. I have
Okay,
3 boys right now,
yeah.
so it'll be 3 boys and 2 girls
So
come the
by
fall.
the
Which is gonna be
time they're born, kind of around September, your boys would still be 5,
yeah, they'll actually
3,
be so
and
they'll be 2, 4, and 6
okay,
by then.
okay,
Yeah, so we'll have like 0, 2, 4, 6.
okay.
Nice and even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Spread the chaos out. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
over 6 years basically. Well, because I'm one of 5, but my siblings were all spread out over almost 13 years. So it was really different because by the time like my sister was born, my older brother was, what is that, like grade 6 or 7?
13 would be probably grade
Wait,
7.
something like that. Whereas like, my oldest, he'll be
Because
in grade
they
1.
come in grade 9 at 14 and they leave at no, 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 no. Yeah, yeah, they leave at 15 because in grade 10 you're 15 to 16,
Yeah, so
16 to
like
17,
right.
17 to 18. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
So
something
so
like
so
that.
potentially even up to grade 8.
Could be, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
like helpful by the time you're 13, 14.
Well, maybe in grade maybe at 13 you're a
Kind of, yeah.
nuisance
Hey,
again.
what are you supposed to be babysitting? No kid
Yeah.
like babysitting. Like, you
Yeah,
know what I mean? It's
that's
like
for
you get
sure,
a little
right?
responsibility. Not quite so much in our. It's just gonna be chaos. It's gonna be bananas. So I'll have you over. You can come
Yeah,
over
yeah,
for
I'll come over, I'll help
for
out.
supper and yeah.
Um, yeah, that's interesting too, because like even like when I was a kid, like I feel like by the time grade 7, 8 rolled around, like my parents were comfortable just leaving me at the house by myself.
Yeah,
Whereas like my sisters are not so as comfortable leaving their kids at the house.
right.
It's
It's
like
changed.
it's like, well, why? Like just leave them there, see what happens.
Oh, and I think people used to just go out into the neighborhood and go, like ride bikes till streetlights come on.
Yeah.
Like if my kids were gone like that, I'd be calling the cops. You know what I mean? Like it's
Well,
so
for sure at
different.
this age, right?
Yeah.
Like at 6 for
Well,
sure,
I know,
right?
but
Yeah.
even like I don't know that I'll ever get to the point where they're just gone for half a day and
Interesting.
I don't know, it's
Yeah.
different. I don't know.
What
Maybe in the
feels different?
city. I don't know. Like maybe when you're out in the country and stuff and everybody's gone, but you kind of know that, they're safe. I don't know. In the city, it just feels like if you just set them off on their bikes and they're gone for, after lunch till supper, like for 4 or 5 hours, I don't know. I just worry.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a worrier, so
Do you know who Jonathan Haidt is?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
like he has a book on that topic as well of like what was happening around the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. I don't know exactly when, but the like idea that like your children are just going to be, let's say, like kidnapping is
Yeah,
obviously a fear of many people.
sure.
But he looked at the statistics and it's like, like, yeah, your kids are more likely to be kidnapped by someone in the family than like,
Some random
right.
off the street.
Yeah, right. Like
Yeah, I believe
when I
that.
grew up, it was like, oh, white van, like watch out
A
for the
hundred
white van,
percent with
right?
the guy selling candy out of the white
Yeah,
van. Yeah, you got to keep your head up.
I don't think I've ever seen a legitimate case of that,
No,
right?
I
I
don't
I
think
think that was just white van slander.
yeah, that's very true, actually.
Like, and obviously not to say that doesn't happen at all, but it's just kind of interesting. Like, I have this book, started skimming through it, but didn't finish, called Free Range Kids.
Oh
And
yeah.
like I forget the woman's name who wrote it, but her and Jonathan Haidt are kind of promoting like, hey, like you need to let your kids go out and solve their own
Yes.
problems and like
Hmm.
figure out what to do with themselves,
Yes.
right? Because like I guess one of the things that makes letting kids out just on their own, let's say riding bikes in the neighborhood, is like technology. So like how many people are distracted by their cell phones while they're
Yeah.
driving? Fly, like guilty, but
Hmm.
flying through, 40, 50 speed limit zones,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not that I'm not on my cell phone, but like, obviously the physics of that 10-kilometer difference
Yeah.
makes
It's
makes
huge
huge, right?
for sure.
Particularly when you look at like reaction times, it's like not a lot of pro athletes on the road, right?
No,
Like most
exactly.
people are
Slow enough
very,
without,
very stunted.
yeah, slow enough reaction
Hmm.
time without their cell phone
Hmm.
yet.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have like a pretty crazy either summer, like if it happens in August. And
Yeah.
you guys are hoping for August, I think.
Yeah, we kind of, I mean, as long as, they'll stay in there, we'll let them
Hmm.
cook. And as long as
Gotta
my
let the
wife's
kid
able to
cook.
like stay
Yeah.
comfortable, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But yeah, they've basically kind of said they won't let him go much past mid-September. And so whenever they come, they come. So yeah, I'm not really sure what our summer will kind of look like, but we won't go too far. We're just gonna kind of
Yeah, that
hang
makes
out
sense.
and
Hmm.
yeah.
Do you have like names chosen for them?
Yep, we do,
Okay.
but we're not saying. We're
Okay,
not.
okay, okay,
We
okay.
do. We've got like a couple family names. We always keep like family names kind of for like a middle name, and then we've had a couple of girl names in the queue, kind of on standby in case any of our first three had turned out to be girls. So, but we never ended up using any of those names, so we've still got them and we still like them.
Oh, so
So
you had like
we had names. We've had
for
names for like
boys and
60
girls
years.
for
Yeah, because we
several. Okay.
didn't know whether they were boys or girls for most of them till they were born. So then we still got a few good girl names in the queue, or ones that we like anyway.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah, that'll happen next
Yeah.
school year.
Yeah, we never tell anybody our names because
Interesting. Why is that?
I don't know, we kind of everybody's got an opinion, so then you can like tell
Okay,
people the
yeah.
name and then they're kind of like, "Oh, I don't really, okay, that's not really for me or whatever." And then it's like, "Well, what's wrong? Like, what the heck?" So if we don't tell them, then once you have the baby and you already named them, then they have to at least pretend they like it because it's like that's the name of your kid, so they have to at least be polite and like I don't really want people's opinions on the names I like beforehand. That's just my philosophy.
No, that's fair,
Because once you
right?
name them
Well, like,
now they have to at least
it's
act polite.
like between you, your wife, and the consideration of the child's
Yeah,
future, right?
100%.
Like as teachers, like how many times do you see just a name that's spelled so
Oh
strange?
yeah.
It's like,
Oh, and between Meg and I, because she taught a lot of kids for like
yeah,
10 years, and so
yeah,
she's
yeah.
got a lot of names that like she wouldn't necessarily choose, and I got a lot of names I wouldn't necessarily choose. So
Oh,
between us,
really?
it's pretty
Okay.
hard to pick names. Well, I mean, it's just like you
Uh-huh.
have a lot of associations with. You kind of want it to be almost like I don't know, for me, kind of without a name that doesn't have connotations with somebody else.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
there's not there's a lot
I
of
guess I have
names
kids
you've even
soon,
seen.
sooner than later
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Oh,
The
we'll throw
longer
out a
you
few.
teach, the more names you're like,
All of a
no,
sudden you
no.
just cross them all off the list.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah. Where would you, let's say, find inspiration for names then?
Oh, they got apps now. You can like swipe.
Yeah.
Have you seen them?
You
So
can
you
just swipe
download an app.
names.
Yeah, yeah. So you download an app. You both partners can download an app, and then it goes through names, and you like swipe right, swipe left, and then all the names. I'm serious. There's an app for everything, and then all the ones that you both like in common, it
Oh,
puts into a
okay.
list, so you can independently kind of like choose names you like, and then it just pulls all the ones that you both
Wow,
like into
that's so
one list, kind of thing.
interesting.
Yeah, good. It's pretty effective. You can crush through a lot of names pretty
Yeah, yeah,
fast.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. But
Wow.
we had a couple. Actually, there was the name that we really like. I picked up back when I was traveling in Europe, kind of through like it's kind of Irish. So I've had it in the queue for a long time. I don't know, just kind of picked them up along the way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's funny you should mention Irish because I was just thinking that when I said the comment of like names that are spelled strangely,
oh,
like
the
some Irish
Irish.
names. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like Haley with the like the Irish spelling. Like I don't know how to spell it, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
On
kind of
paper
like
looks nothing like Haley.
no,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Or yeah. So
I know. So I mean, I just saw this video from this Irish actress, and I don't even know how to say her name. Sars, Cersei.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but she was pronouncing all these like Irish names, and Siobhan's name came up on there as
Right.
well. I'm
Yeah,
like,
Siobhan's another one where you wouldn't necessarily, if you didn't know how to pronounce it, you wouldn't
yeah.
necessarily guess. And I
Um,
kind of want one that like reads the way, you would kind of expect phonetically, just
mhm.
so that otherwise you're constantly spelling it your whole life. So we kind of want one. But then I also think through like what are your initials going to spell? Make sure it's nothing like weird. You don't want like your initials to spell like a word that they're going to get bugged about. And then I think about all the nicknames they're going to get called, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Then I think
Then
about like
that's like such a kind consideration you could give to your child because like if you're just like, oh, do you watch Game of Thrones?
oh yeah.
Like how many people name their daughters Cersei
Oh
or no,
yeah.
no, not Cersei,
Or
not Cersei. Like Khaleesi or
yeah,
like
right,
what
exactly.
was
Some
her
of those really
Daenerys.
yeah.
Like in
Probably. I'm sure there were tons
like
coming
in
out after
season
that.
5, right? And then season 8 comes by. You're like, oh my god, there's a murderous psychopath, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're like, ooh, should have done that.
Right. Um,
It's interesting though, because you see all the lists of names, like most popular names that come out, and following Game of Thrones, like Arya, and there was a couple other ones on there that was like,
Sansa,
yeah,
maybe, right?
exactly. Like some of them, you see these huge spikes
Yeah,
following
yeah,
those
yeah,
shows, and
yeah.
I mean, I like the name actually, but yeah, it's just funny how you can
You
see
gotta
the
wait.
trend.
You gotta wait till like the entirety of the show is over,
Yes,
and maybe time has had its say with the show before you're like, okay,
yes,
right?
yeah.
You know,
Or it's
like
funny how old names make recurrences. You know what I mean? Like some of my grandma's like sisters and like
yeah, yeah,
they'd
just
be
like
like in their hundreds, kind of like now.
yeah,
Those names are all really coming back.
interesting.
And I didn't even know that until I was talking to my mom, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that was like my great aunt's name or whatever." And it's kind of like, "Oh, but nobody
A
knows
name
that
like
now." So
Georgina.
yeah, like all these names exactly that
Yeah.
like seemed. It's almost like you kind of have to skip a couple generations. We were talking about that. Skip a couple generations till nobody recognizes them anymore as old names, and then now they're all the new names. Run it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like how do people just come up with like unique names?
Yeah, I think there's hardly any. Well,
That
I
that's
mean,
not something to be
it's not like
clowned on,
weird,
right? Yeah,
exactly. Not
yeah.
some celebrity one, but just like
Uh,
yeah, there. I don't think there are. I think they just get reused. They just get recycled like 2, 3 generations later and
mhm,
run it again. Yeah.
mhm.
And what's your summer looking like?
Uh, hopefully in the gym.
I should be doing all that.
Like weightlifting. Hopefully do some jujitsu. Like the goal is to do a lot of jujitsu
Nice.
as well. Because there's like a grading ceremony that comes up every September, kind of early September.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm halfway through my blue belt. So the goal was like if I could get like another stripe on my blue belt before the end of June, that like I'd like really aggressively push to try to get that purple belt. But obviously like the professor, our coach, and like he'll kind of just decide like if he thinks you're ready for the promotion, he'll give it to you, right?
So
But
there's not like a formal like ranking. Like when I was karate, it was always like a real formal ranking. It was a whole,
so
car-
there is, but the instructor could decide like okay, like David is clearly showing levels at this other belt,
yeah.
even though he might have two, like they call them stripes
Yeah.
before that.
Oh,
Like
I
okay,
see.
like
Okay.
come on, David, promotion day, like come up, here's your purple belt,
Oh, okay.
right?
Cool.
And part of that just like I think that that's like an old school mentality that the or let's say traditional, right? That like the professor, the instructor, the black belt, or if you have higher belts, I mean, you have to go to Brazil or like southern parts of America, like
Oh,
California, wherever, where you have people who are like legends in the sport, so they have a higher belt than black belt.
right.
Um, I think it's traditional where they're like, yeah, like you're ready for this, right? At
Oh,
least in
okay.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I would assume like the more Asian side of the martial arts, it's probably very like you got to get all of these 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you get your belt.
Yeah.
But that would just mean that David gets his stripes sooner, right?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Than Najib or whoever else is
Yeah.
training,
Right
right?
on. Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so how long have you been doing it for?
I'd say a solid 3 years of
And then how many
training, right?
belts have you like what's the order of belts?
It goes white, blue, purple, brown, and black. So
Okay.
I'm still low on the food chain,
Yeah.
right? So I did start like the year before COVID. I had like a good year. I had a good 2 years, and then COVID hit.
Right.
And in COVID, I got my blue belt.
Okay.
During that time, I also started my professional career, and so like got super busy with work, had a falling out at my gym, so I stopped training. Um, and then there was like this limbo period. So technically, I've been, in the sport since probably 2018, but realistically, like probably 3 full years, maybe coming
Of
up on four
training.
full years, which um, you can kind of like with consistent training and consistent progress, you can get a belt every 2 years, roughly speaking,
Right. Okay. So
right?
you're like,
So to get a black belt for the common person is about 10 years,
right.
right? That's why they call the instructor professor, right?
Oh, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Actually, that was similar. That was actually pretty similar for karate. I think it was about 10 years before,
Mm-hmm.
10 or 12 years before I got a black belt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, like some sports just differ, right? Like some people can get a black belt in like so in some martial arts you can get one in like 4 years, right?
Right. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah. And what that means and what it represents and how it's sort of seen. Yeah, it differs a lot. And
yeah, with jujitsu, it's not necessarily just about like, oh, this person's proficient in all these like this person is knowledgeable in all these techniques.
Mhm.
Uh, at least like I could say this about the gym I'm at and many gyms, but it also has that like because you could just do the basic fundamental stuff, get really good at it, and
Mhm.
I would say hypothetically you could get a black belt just on that. Just the same stuff you'll learn in your beginner classes as a white
Right.
belt. Um, so it's about the proficiency, and then many professors might even consider like the attitude of the individual.
Right.
So they might like hold them back for a bit and like, okay, this guy or girl doesn't have like the qualities of a martial artist, of a black belt,
Right.
right? Or whatever. I don't know how much they'll do that for other belts. It's kind of like, white belt, blue belt. It's like just shut up and show up,
Right.
right? And
Yeah,
train,
but by the time you
right?
get a black belt, you should probably have a certain level of discipline and a certain level of, you
Yeah.
know,
Well, even like by the time you're like a purple belt, really,
yeah,
right? Like you should start showing those signs of like you're helping out the white belts.
right.
You're gauging, and I would say even earlier on, you're gauging your tempo, pressure, speed with, your opponent, right? So
Mhm.
like, if I like it's kind of funny. We did a Shark Tank drill this one day, and I was doing quite well against the adults and their white belts and some like kind of maybe 12 to 14-year-olds as well, and the tempo with them was different. But then like a 5-year-old came in the line and he's sparring against me after I just
So what
sparring
is
an
a Shark
adult.
Tank? You get like a bunch
Okay,
of,
so Shark Tank is like the coach will set up a scenario, right? um I could, you want me to explain kind of like,
yeah, I'm just
okay,
curious what
so
it
let's
is.
say like the scenario is like, okay, the person in the Shark Tank is seated, they're sitting,
Okay.
and they have to either sweep their opponent or
Oh,
submit them, right?
okay.
The person who enters the Shark Tank has to get past the guard, like get past my legs, and
Oh,
essentially like hold me down.
yeah.
So they could do from my side, they could take full mount where they're like either sitting on my stomach, chest,
Yes.
right? But they have to
Okay.
like get past my legs, which is my like big defense sitting down, and they have to secure that position for like 3 seconds.
Oh, that's cool.
And then you can add limitations. It's like, okay, like the guy on the bottom, the guy in the Shark Tank Hour Girl, like you can't go too turtle. So let's say the guy throws my legs and I roll with it and I like turtle up. So I'm like on
Yeah.
my hands and knees and I'm buttoned up. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you can't do that.
Okay.
Right. Which adds another level of challenge. It's like you have to keep your opponent in front of you.
Right.
And in like your like square to your body. Because as soon as somebody starts getting like a parallel is this parallel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or perpendicular. Yeah.
Perpendicular, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's so hard to defend, right? And that tendency to turn over, get into a turtle, which is a defensive position,
Yeah.
sometimes the coach doesn't want to see that. It's like, well, we want to see more aggressive defense before you get into a situation where you're defending against submissions.
Right.
As long as the person's in front of you, they haven't thrown your legs to the side, you have a very competitive positioning in the sport, at least, right? Obviously, like for fighting, it's very different, right?
Yeah.
Like you, and street fighting's even more different. Like you do not want to be on the floor in a street fight. So that's kind of like a Shark Tank, right? So,
That's
so,
interesting.
so like the coach might set up 10 minutes Shark Tank, right? 4 people in the middle on this side with this weight grouping, and then 4 on that side. And so, anyways, like we're doing this, and like with some of the people at the same belt are higher, like I'm like 100% going, and then the white belts who are big, like I'm going, right? And then
Yeah.
like a girl might come up and it's like, okay, I'll tone that down a little bit in terms of physicality, but
Yeah.
like still go 100% with the technique. It's like,
Yeah.
like no, I'm not, like I'm trying to stay in the
Yeah.
Shark Tank, right?
For
And then,
sure.
you know, kids are coming in as well. And the thing with some of these kids is like they've been training for like 6, 7, 8 years, right?
Right. So they probably got a lot
Like
of technique.
there's a kid I train with, he's in grade 9. He's been training 10 years, right?
Right.
And like there are some days where he gets me like this, and there are other days where I'm just bigger and stronger, and
Yeah.
then which I don't even know. The kid's he's strong as hell, man. Like he's a tough kid, right? And then in training, like you could be big and strong, but that person could be half your strength and double, triple, quadruple your technique.
Right.
And so they feel like a ton, and you feel like, you know, a bag of feathers,
Right.
right? But you know, the kids are coming. They've trained a while, so it's like okay, like it's still a child, so like tone that down. But like you cannot let up on the technique because they'll just pass, right? They'll beat you, right?
Just based on technique.
Yeah,
That's so-
right. And just I don't know, like zest, like they're
Yeah.
just like moving at 100 miles an hour because they're so
Got
small,
youth
right?
on their side.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They're so small.
Don't
It's like
underestimate.
you don't need to put 180 pounds on one leg and jump to another. Like that takes so much energy. Like you're only doing 75, 100
Yeah,
pounds,
they're
right?
fast.
You know, so like part of as you progress, in my mind at least, is like learning that ability to cater to what is happening, right? Because like you know, like I'll spar with one of our black belt coaches who competes at like
Right.
an international level sometimes, and he is not gunning for my neck the same way he would at another black belt at a tournament, right?
Right.
And you know, if I were to turn up the tempo, he would as well. But he's
Yes.
not like all the way up here, and I'm like, yo, bro, I'm just trying to have like a
Right.
nice, relaxing day, right? Like if I go
Exactly.
kind of relaxing, his tempo will be as well. His technique will still be top tier,
Right.
but it's like, oh, he's
Kinda
like
match
he's
your-
very slowly moving into a very advantageous position. I'm screwed, right? But anyways, like in
You
this
can learn a
one,
lot from that, though.
oh, totally, right? There's a lot of value in that as well. But anyways, this one day, so I'm like doing really well, and then I have this exhausting matchup, and the next one's like a maybe 4 or 5 year old kid, and I was like, okay, like all right, like I'll put my technique there. I'll just move really slowly. And again, this kid's got youth and lightweight on his side, so he's rapidly moving. And eventually, like you know, he did out technique me. It was like, oh, like
Oh, really?
You know, he snuck his leg in a particular position, started sliding through. It was like, and like at that point, it's like he's so small, like I can't. It's like by the time I react, his leg's already out the other side. It's like okay, like
That's
you know,
cool.
and it's like I don't want to just grab the kid and throw him,
Yeah,
right? Like
even
you
though
don't want to be
couldn't pick
that
him up
guy.
and
right? Yeah,
toss him, yeah.
Well, I could have just grabbed him like this and just
By
thrown
the
him.
scruff
Right?
of the neck.
Get back in line, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's part of it as well, just recognizing like, okay, like so, you know, when I first started there, I would like me and my buddy, we'd go with everyone, right? And like the first few weeks there, like many times we'd show up to train, like we'd spar 10 rounds, so we'd pick 10 different
Wow.
people, right? So that's like, you know, 60 minutes of sparring and
Yeah,
jujitsu.
it's intensive.
With jujitsu, there's no striking, right? So there's no hitting people.
Yeah.
But like the physicality is still there, like you're
Right.
grappling with someone, like so
Yeah.
think like wrestling, like
Yeah.
it's very intense. But you know, like I'd go from like the small skilled people to like the large skilled people as well.
Right.
And like yeah, the 240-pound muscular black belt is not like treating me the same way as he would the other 240-pound individuals at the gym with purple, brown, and black belts, or even
Right.
white and blue belts, right? Like the younger guys who want to go really hard
Yeah.
and are big. It's like
He'll match
physical
him.
matchup, right?
Yeah.
Like they'll match their pace.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like there's so many of these guys, like, you know, they could probably crush my entire rib cage. And,
Yes.
You know, they just don't,
Just
right?
no
I
technique
think
required.
one guy tried. I had him on the podcast, Tony Chin. Like me and
Oh,
my buddy
really?
talked about it. We're like, man, did it feel like he was trying to kill you as well? Like, yeah, dude, it did, right? And I think that was his way of welcoming people into the gym.
Right.
Just like, okay, let's see what they're made of. right?
Exactly. A little bit of a rite of passage.
Right, but he wouldn't have done that to my buddy's wife, who's like a 5'2" girl,
Right,
right?
right.
Very different. And I don't even
Exactly.
know if they even offered spar one another because it's like it's just so ridiculous.
Right.
You have this one guy who's like 6'2" to 6'4" and like 280 pounds, and you have like a 5'1", 135-pound female. It's like,
Yeah.
what's the point?
Doesn't even make
Yeah.
sense. But you know, it is interesting because I've always often thought about that. Like, because taking karate, it's so
Yeah.
different where it's so focused on being on your feet. There's like no grappling. There's no, there is a little bit of takedown stuff, but I mean, you take karate for all those years, but as soon as you ever end up on the floor,
Yeah.
like if you ever end up on the ground, you're toast. You got no
Man,
technique.
man,
You got
it's like
no options. And that's where it's, likely to end up if you ever actually got in a fight. And like for me, karate it was more about just the exercise and the, kind of like
hmm
learning to control your body and the movements. And it's kind of like you say, like in karate leading up to black belt is so much about just learning the basics. Like even, like a black belt is very much considered like the starting point,
yeah, yeah,
kind of on your journey. And it's like, okay, now you have the basic techniques. Now you can start to actually progress and use them and learn new,
hmm
sparring techniques and new kata and like all those different things that kind of, you build on. But it really is like okay,
hmm
the black belt is kind of the beginning.
Like now
It's
that
so
you
different. Now that
understand,
you understand, now that
let
we're
me
all,
explain to you.
yeah, how it just has explained to you just how much you don't know,
Yeah, yeah.
about all these other things. It was kind of cool in that way. But yeah, that's why I was so interested in hearing about jujitsu because a
And
whole other side of
the
it.
oh, okay. So I'll comment on that part, what you were saying. Like, there's like a funny meme with jujitsu. It's like, oh, I'm a shark and the ground is my ocean, right?
Yeah, that's what I
And
was
the
picturing.
funny, like the reality behind that is like if you don't know how to grapple,
Yeah,
if you don't know what to do when the fight goes to the ground,
yeah,
and you're with someone who does,
yeah,
and maybe they've been training for some time, you will literally feel like you're drowning,
yeah.
right?
Oh, I believe that would
Like
be me.
yeah, like I've had to tap a couple of times just because of pressure. Like the person on top was very big, they're strong, they're heavy, and they know what they're doing. It's like, oh my god, this is so uncomfortable.
Right.
And sometimes like guys will wear looser shirts, so they'll like get on top, they'll start smothering you, and they're going for your arms, but their shirt is hanging over my nose.
Oh
It's like I
yeah,
can't breathe. Right?
suffocating.
Yeah, yeah. And that's very interesting too to observe like that like panic response in your body. It's
Yeah.
like and I had read this or listened to a podcast, some coach talking about like one of the ways to tell just from the general population who has the potential to be an elite athlete is like how comfortable are they with CO2 levels in their like blood
Oh,
body, right? And that has to do
I
with
could see
breathing,
it.
right?
Right.
And like yeah, there were some times I was like, oh, this is not comfortable, like I want to, right?
Right.
And other times where it's like, okay, I see what's happening, like I need to move quick, otherwise
Yeah.
like the panic and the stress on the body will take over because I can't breathe,
And then you're
right?
not thinking clearly, and then
Yeah, right, right. And that's not like a submission, like a chokehold submission. That's just like a shirt covering
right,
my face,
exactly.
like,
But that same
and it's
feeling of
loosely hanging. It's worse,
yeah,
right? Like if somebody gets their arm around my neck and they start squeezing, it's like, okay, like what are they? What? Okay, they're squeezing my neck, but they're not trapping my legs. Okay, I need to
right,
get my hips out that way, and they start moving, and you start escaping, and they
yes,
start realizing, like, oh man, I messed it up, right? And
right.
stop his legs. Man, when there's a shirt covering your face, they don't even know what they're doing, right?
No,
So sometimes you'll like randomly tap, like, "Oh, you okay? Like, what's going on?" It's like, "Yeah, it's all good.
your
It's your
shirt, yeah,
shirt. Right? Your shirt was covering my nostrils,
literally
right,
suffocating
and
over
my
here.
mouth, right."
Yeah,
So,
so
so,
funny.
so totally. Like, if you're ever in an altercation with someone who knows what to do on the ground and
Yeah.
it goes to the ground, like,
And isn't gonna panic, and
yeah,
that's
yeah,
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 and yeah,
right?
that would be me. I would be
Because even if you're like quite larger than them and you're able to start standing up, if they just slide around to your back and get like an
yeah,
arm completely under your
hmm,
chin and just squeeze the life out of you, like
yeah,
or if you're wearing like a coat and they do like something with the collar, it's like,
yeah.
man, you can apply so much pressure so quick, you can like have a person unconscious before their body hits the ground,
Yes. Well, I
right?
often thought about that in karate because like you kind of learn all these techniques and it's cool and a lot of it's, um could be very effective. But then I often thought, like if you got in some like if you were in a real fight, in a
hmm
real altercation with some, 250 pound,
hmm
you know, muscular, like
just
I'm toast.
a gorilla, right?
Forget it. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
care how much
yeah,
technique I've
yeah,
got. Like, I don't know,
yeah.
maybe it might help, but I don't think so. I'm pretty sure he can grab me by, like you say,
The
grab
arm
you
and the
by the
neck,
jacket, the
right?
arm and the
Like,
neck, and it's like, I'm
yeah,
out.
yeah. Like, and like, I would say you still need both, right? Like, because
Yeah,
there's a lot of jiu-jitsu guys. Apparently, they've been in street fights and they just get clipped in the chin, they
right.
go down,
And then you're
right?
done.
Because they
Yeah,
don't know how to like keep their hands up. They don't know
right.
about their head movement. They
Yeah,
don't
it
know,
is a
right?
little bit of both. It
Like
would be cool
you
to
would
like be
need both, right?
yeah.
But obviously, don't get into street fights,
No,
right? Don't
100%.
don't get into altercations. But the thing is, and I want to do podcasts with some of the guys at the gym, and particularly the young guy who's a black belt. He's coached there and like
Yes.
one of the competitors, because he started young as well, right? Like he was maybe in junior high when he started, because he had a black belt like pretty young, like 18 maybe,
Yeah.
which I think is the youngest you can get a black belt, right? And that is common. Like a
Yeah.
lot of people will get black belts at 18 because they started training when they're 4,
Right. Makes sense. Yeah.
Um, but the degree of self assurance it gives you and confidence that like, okay, like I feel good about my own body,
Right.
right? It's so
Yes.
important for everyone, right? To feel comfortable in your own skin,
Yeah.
right? And you have this like very interesting dynamic growing relationship with yourself,
Yeah.
right? Because even I was discussing with my friend, it's um like I've just been trying to focus on changing my mental approach to jujitsu,
Hmm.
and without actually getting better at technique, my sparring has just gotten better, right?
Right.
Jiu-jitsu has just gotten better. And part of it's just a mental game, right? So that's like a whole unique aspect of it, right? From since I started, and well, I mean, I've been around sports and weightlifting and then jiu-jitsu for a while, so I had a very good relationship with my body in that
Yeah.
regard,
Yeah.
feeling comfortable in my skin. I think I'm very fortunate that I'm quite proficient at just about any sport I decide
Yeah.
to play. Like, I don't know if on any sport I could be the star of the team, but like on many sports, like I'm
You're
not a liability,
proficient. Yeah,
right?
you're
Like
gonna be
not a
pretty
liability,
proficient.
and then as I age and start doing more sport with just the general population, you start realizing like, oh wait a minute, like my perspective is so skewed because like yeah, I'll go to jiu-jitsu and I'll train with guys who used to be cage fighters,
Right.
who are like police officers, right? They have very active jobs, maybe firefighters as
Right.
well, and like um or
Right.
people who had like like, hey, I like wrestled in high school, or like I did weightlifting for like the last 10, 20 years. I did all these sports, and you spar against them, you're like, oh my god, I'm a pleb, right?
Yeah.
Like I'll spar with this guy, like you can search him up. I believe his name is Jeff Hecht, but he like this guy was a CFL champion, I think.
Oh wow.
Like he played in the CFL.
Yeah.
He's a huge guy, right?
Yeah.
Just a monster. It's like this one time, me and some random guy were sitting on the side, we're watching. It's like, shit, we can't keep up with that. Like
Yeah.
this guy's a professional athlete, right?
Yes.
But
But when that's the
right.
level that you're kind of competing
Yeah.
at, you know what I mean? Like it, and I think it does translate into other sports, like you say, like all of that physical body awareness and even just your ability to kind of like slow things down a little bit. It's like you say, like that panic response and the like ability to slow things down a little bit and pay attention to what's going on around you, and it translates to all the sports.
And not like being overreactive
Yeah.
to just things that don't need overreaction.
Exactly.
Right? And I guess the point I was trying to make is that like the previous jiu-jitsu gym I was training at, like I weightlifted with guys. Like one of my friends went to Sweden to compete internationally in weightlifting. Small guy, right? But damn, this dude was deadlifting 600 pounds. Like he might have been like 64 to 72 kilograms himself, right? So 64 kilograms would be
Wow.
like, well, 72 kilograms would be like less than 175
100, yeah, I
pounds,
was gonna say,
right?
yeah.
Small guy, like he was probably like 5'4" ish, 5'5", whatever.
Right.
And if he puts a hoodie on, you'd be like, oh, who's this tiny guy?
Yeah.
Right? Like this tiny guy's gonna pick you up off the ground and maybe throw you, right? Or like if he gets a hold of your arm, you're gonna be like, oh wow, this is not good.
We're in a different
right?
league, yeah.
So like, and I'd be around like some of the bigger dudes at the gym, they'd be benching 600 pounds. It's just like your perspective gets so skewed, right, over time because you're always
Yes.
training with people, and like some of them are like pretty damn good athletes,
Right.
and then you'll go like do something just with like the school, right, and you see like even students like, oh man, like let's say we played a baseball game. It's like, oh, like 6 of these kids in the field can't catch. They can't throw the ball, right? Like 20
Sure.
yards. Or that bachelor party I went to in Calgary recently. One of our guys was throwing a golf ball. So like a bunch of us tried throwing a golf ball.
Yeah.
And I got really into it. And I threw the golf ball 69 yards, right? And I don't think of the 8 to 10 people who threw, only one other person broke 50 yards, and they had like 51 or 52.
Really?
So I was like, oh,
Interesting.
like, wow, that's crazy. Like, whatever the thing was measuring,
Yes.
like clearly my throw was significantly further than everyone else's.
Yeah.
And one of the guys, he saw me throw it a couple of times, like, oh, that looks fun, let me try it. He threw it, he's like, whoa, that's very difficult. So like, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is you got to manage that. Like, if you get into these circles where you're training with people who are training like 5 times a week or
Yeah.
2 times a day, multiple times a week, you have people with these athletic careers in their past that now they're 30, 40, 50 years old, and you're like, oh, it's just some like older guy. But it's like, yeah, that older guy used to be a cage fighter, right? Or
Right.
like a football player, or they went to university for this sport, track and
Right.
field, right? Like,
The guy might have a lot of strength, a
sometimes it
lot of
skews
body
your
awareness.
perspective. We're like, damn, man,
Yeah.
I'm weak as hell. I'm less athletic than everybody here, and like everybody's better than me.
Right.
And then you go somewhere else, like, oh, yeah, all these
It's
people are
just
just
they're
like me. They're casuals, and
Yeah.
like I'm way ahead of them, right?
Right.
So it's kind of interesting, right? Like doing something like a martial art
Yeah.
is so different than like like playing hockey. Like one of the
Yeah.
reasons why I don't find like most sports interesting anymore is like the team aspect makes it so that like a standout player or someone who is doing well could just be like, ah, well, like let's say Connor McDavid,
Yeah.
right? He could just be like, well, the goalie sucks. He let in like 6 goals, right? Like, you know, or like every time I broke through, and I haven't watched an Oilers game like in a long time,
I
right?
have.
So I haven't, right?
Yeah.
So, but he could say something like, well, my line, like, did my 2 linesmen, like, they're just never up there with me. They're
Right.
not able to keep up with me, or even like stay within range to help.
Mm-hmm.
So it stunts my progress, my ability, right? Like, you could make that excuse,
Yeah.
but like,
Sure.
when you watch like a cage fight, a UFC fight, an MMA fight, or a boxing match, it's like you basically have like the two systems going at each other.
Yeah.
It's like how well did one person train versus the other, and how much willingness is there to be in that competition in that moment, right?
Yeah.
And it just seems different to me now. It's more enjoyable, right? It's like
It is kind of different. Yeah, for sure. Because yeah, you look at like a Conor McDavid. There's no one really to like push him to the next level because he's just so far ahead of. You've
Right.
really so you never watched Oilers?
uh
Like you haven't been
like
watching
late
any of
to-
the series?
no,
Are you gonna watch tonight's game?
no, I'm gonna go
What
to
if they go to
jiu-jitsu.
game?
I'm
What if
gonna
they go to game
jiu-jitsu
7?
tonight.
What if they go to game
If they go to
7 on
game-
Monday night? You're not gonna sit down and watch.
I don't think so.
Actually, they've been winning, I guess, lately. So maybe
I-
stick with what you're doing.
I don't
I'm a
think
little-
so. I don't think so.
Not that I'm
I
like
just feel
really,
I'll be happy that they
superstitious.
happy.
but I'm just saying, just keep doing whatever you've been doing because it's been working. So don't change anything now.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And I think I shared with you and Sue in the staff room was like
Yeah, we
round
were
one,
talking about
round
the
two. I
loop
was
the
like,
other
man,
day.
I hope they lose, right? And then round three, it's like, all right, I hope they win.
Now
right?
I
That'd
hope
be
they make
awesome
it all the way.
for,
Yeah.
for the city, right?
Yes, it'd be
You know,
so
and like,
exciting.
and then at some point I had to address my own bitterness of like, man, people are having fun, like they're
Yes.
enjoying themselves, like let them enjoy,
But
right?
it's crazy.
No. Game day, I do not want to be down.
Oh, I don't want to be
right?
down
Yeah.
there, but I
Yeah.
like looking. No, exactly.
Um,
It would be fun.
I watched part of a game this Stanley Cup run. I don't even know against who.
Like this one, the 4th round against Florida.
I haven't watched any hockey against Florida.
Oh, it's been good hockey.
Well, not the first
It's
three.
good.
That's not the first. Yeah. Okay,
Games.
okay.
But it's kind of like you say, it's like those guys are competing at such a high level, and they were actually having those were good games, and I think they were outplaying them even during a lot of those games, but little things.
I did see that goal that you and Sue were talking about that was just
All
phenomenal.
for McDavid. Oh, we had another one the
Watch
other
that.
day, the last game. You should watch it. Look it up. Him and Perry. It's worth watching because it's like
Well, I
you
was
say.
gonna ask about that.
He's like there's a meme going around. I can't remember exactly, but it was basically like McDavid, and he's surrounded by like he literally had 4
Panthers.
Panthers on like all 4 corners of him, and it was basically like this resulted in a goal because he's like just making an entry and he just goes around them like like he's seeing everything in slow motion. It's so cool. It's just so cool to watch. I think
Yeah,
because he's
right?
at such a different
Like,
level. It's like
it
we were talking
totally,
about.
right?
There's nobody that
Mm-hmm.
is
So
operating at
that
this level.
same weekend of that game where that goal happened,
Yeah.
like there was a fighter who did something so phenomenal in the 5th round of a
Yeah.
dog fight that was like, holy, how did this guy pull that off, right? Like Islam Makhachev was fighting Dustin Poirier,
Okay.
who both are very incredible.
Yeah.
They're both like beat to hell. They're both covered in sweat. It's like the last 2 or 3 minutes in the last round of a 25-minute fight.
Yeah.
And this was what I was curious about. Like one of the things I really love about the UFC and appreciate about fighting is like there's like 30 seconds to not 30 to 90 seconds in between a round. So you're like fighting for your life.
Right.
You sit down, your coaches talk to you, somebody's like cooling you down, they
Yeah.
give you a little bit of water, you're back out there, right?
Yeah.
Because I was like when I watched because I did watch a bit, maybe it was against Dallas, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe in the round before, I was at my sister's place and we were kind of watching and like, you know, it went to intermission. I was like, well, this is a snooze fest, like 20 minutes of watching these losers talk, like
Oh,
right?
in between periods.
Right. So I was like, you know, it just made me appreciate the fight even more. It's like, because I've done it where it's like, you know, you spar with someone for 6 minutes, we get a minute and a half, and then you do another 6
You hardly
minutes,
have time to catch your breath.
Yeah, if you're out of shape, man.
Forget it.
Right?
90 seconds?
Mhm,
Yeah, that's
mhm.
you're gonna
Yeah, so I've definitely like sparred with people, gone all out, you know, and been so dog tired for the next round. And it's like, oh my God, this guy's gunning for my neck. And you have to like dig deep
Yes.
into yourself to like protect yourself,
Yes.
right? To keep yourself safe. And not that like people are like harming you, but it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm gonna lose to nobody for no like
Yeah.
BS reason, right? Like I gotta defend my ego here.
It's a mental toughness thing.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
for
it is
sure,
like
right?
you kind of have to overcome your own, fight
But-
your own.
right? There's
demons.
like David Goggins. He tells a story of like Hell Week in the Navy SEAL training. He's like, that's where I learned to take souls. Like I'd look at the Navy SEAL in charge. I'd smile at him. So he'd go home later that night, tossing and turning in bed, wondering why is that guy so happy at Hell Week, right? It's like, you know. So I kind of made it
That's great.
I made it when I was training regularly. Like I made it a point of like, no matter how difficult the round is, like you have to get up right away after and walk off like nothing happened.
That's
right?
cool.
Just be
I
like,
like
okay.
that though.
You know, and that mentality carries forward with you. Like
Right.
it's like, yeah, we almost fought to the death there, but like, yeah, I'm good.
I'm
6
right,
minutes
we'll
is
go
up. Like
do
who's
another
next,
round.
right? But yeah, like, so let's say you're Connor McDavid, right? You're in that scenario and you score this phenomenal goal. Like you just make a fool of the entire
Yeah,
team,
yeah.
the lineup, the coach, the
Yeah, the whole
organization,
thing, yeah.
right? like
The whole thing.
scrap it all down,
Yeah.
move to a different
Yeah.
city, start it again, right? Perfect example, actually. I saw the save by Matthew Tkachuk.
Oh, Chuck, yeah.
Tkachuk.
Yeah.
Incredible
Cool.
save.
Yeah.
Right.
it's
I
cool.
didn't see the whole play, but I saw the save. Like, wow, that's impressive.
It was cool.
And his teammate gave up on the play.
Yeah.
Right. Like you could see in the zoom out, I was like, oh, he clearly didn't hunt the puck
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
And McDavid catches it,
Boom.
sharp turn right into the net.
Yeah.
And then I think like the Matthew guy's like,
What the?
like, what did I just do all of that for? And I don't know what the
Yeah.
score was, right? Maybe it was just
No, it was only one game. It was only one goal difference. You know what I mean? Like it's
Oh
close.
wow. Why was
Yeah.
the net empty?
Well, because in that last 2 minutes, sometimes they'll pull the goalie so they get a sick
Oh, okay,
player.
okay,
so
okay.
then they
No, no,
can.
no,
but
no,
they were
no,
like in
no,
that last
no,
2 minutes of the
no.
game, and it was like,
Oh, I
you know,
understand
so
that,
by
yeah.
keeping it out, then it was like, you know, they
Yeah.
were only down by one goal.
Yeah,
Man, my heart
okay,
was
okay.
racing. I was so,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Okay, okay.
it's crazy.
Right? So like
But yeah,
that night
How
for sure you
frustrating.
can say like it was your fault,
Yeah,
right? Like we
Pasti
were
inverted.
close. Maybe we had like another 60 seconds.
yeah,
right?
could
But
have.
but you know
could
that
add another-
additional pressure, right?
Right.
Whereas like with the fighting, it's like sometimes the coaches will tell the fighter stupid stuff like, "Hey, you're in this fight," and the commentators will be like, "He is not in this fight. Like he is clearly down 2 or 3 rounds. Like
Right.
he needs to get going."
Right.
Right? And then you know you'll see that fighter lose, right?
Right.
Sometimes due to decision, which can be garbage, but yeah, you know, like the strength of character that is built with sport, regardless, right?
Yeah.
Because like you know, even if you're on a team, even if you're Matthew Tkachuk,
Yeah.
Tkachuk,
Yeah.
like what do you do the next 30 seconds to 2 hours after that
Yeah.
incident, right? Like, do you go to your teammate's face and just rag on him, right?
Yeah.
You know, or like who's their goalie, Bobrovsky. I
Yeah.
saw the photo of him crying when he got pulled, right? It's like
Was he?
I think so.
Oh,
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. They're like he
Oh,
was
I'm
very
sure he was
distraught.
rattled.
He was
Oh, I'm
very
sure he
distraught,
was.
right?
Yeah. Like,
Matter of fact, I saw like a meme of like Roberto Luongo, like they're like, oh, like he just got this shocked look on his face, and I don't know what his association is with this finals or someone cutting grass outside.
that's always nice.
They're like, oh, Roberto Luongo's having like PTSD flashbacks, and I don't even know what the connection is, but it's kind of funny because I know he played for the Canucks,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's you know, sports will build character.
Yeah.
Going through these difficult things through sports is for many people, like especially at an early age, might be like the only adversity you really face in
Yes.
like modern life. and you know, I would say that like the combat is like the highest pinnacle of that through sport.
Yeah,
It's like,
I think so too.
man, sometimes people get a hold of you, like, wow, there are levels to this. I cannot do anything, right?
Yeah.
And
Right. So how do you respond? And
yeah,
how do you?
right. How do you deal with that? How do you cope?
Yeah, I
Right.
was reading about because you know, like Skinner, you know, a lot of people say like you know, does he
That's the
have like
goalie,
the,
right?
yeah,
Stuart
sorry,
Skinner.
our
Yeah.
goalie, like, and does he have like the mental fortitude to be able to like kind of like come bounce back when you have a bad game? And I don't know exactly his title with the team, but he used to like he's I guess a pretty renowned um like sports psychologist basically, and kind of like helping develop that mental
Mhm.
fortitude, that mental
He
toughness.
worked
And
with the Oilers.
yeah, but he's worked with like when you look at some of the other athletes like Jordan, and he worked with oh, I can't remember. There was kind of a list of
Okay.
basketball
Yeah.
players.
Yeah.
They're like at a super high level, but like helping them, you know, how do you bounce back? Those kinds of things. Yeah, it I just there's so much to it, and it apply and it's a sports thing, but it's an everyday life thing. Like, you know, just how do you respond when things get tough, and how does that affect you, and how do you go forward? What do you do in the next half an hour or hour? How do you respond to that? Yeah, I started reading into that guy. It was really interesting. And anyways, I say that because it, you know, everybody said, oh, and like there's been some games where Skinner's just had these incredible games, and they're not talking about all the stuff he's doing to like build up his resiliency, you know, like his mental
Mm-hmm.
resilience.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of work being done kind of behind the scenes. You never talk about it, but man, I think it's such a huge aspect of the game. And
Well, especially like I feel like your job is like you're very alone as a goalie,
very
right?
win
Like,
or lose, like you win and everybody, you know, it's you win the game for them, or you lose the game for them very much.
yeah,
Yeah, very interesting.
right. So like that's definitely like in hockey, like that's a position that for sure requires that encourages a lot of mental fortitude, especially if
Yes.
you want to do it at a high level,
Yeah.
right? Because like if you're a third line defenseman, like,
Yeah.
hey, stop being a bum. Like, screw you. I'm better than everybody else at your league, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And maybe there's no desire to really get better, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Individual sports are interesting for that. Or like
mhm.
golf. Like there was the US Open the other day, and like Rory McIlroy, who I love Rory McIlroy. Because he's just Irish, and you know. And it's like I don't know, I kinda like seeing him win, but he like kinda like he had it. He hasn't won a major in years and years and years. And I think it's been like over a decade or something. And then he like
Mhm.
had it. He was like leading, and then he just kind of choked in the last couple holes. And same thing, he like got in his car, drove away. You know, like for such a game, for such a game that is usually based on such sportsmanship and um
Well, this guy lost, and then
yeah,
he
he
was kind of
lost
like,
in like the last two holes. He kind of gave it away and ended up losing it,
and he's just
and he
like,
just like
I'm
got in
out
his
of
car and
here.
drove away. And it was, you know, and everybody said you can't, you know, everybody only had good things to say about him. And you know
Hmm.
the how it's a super tough loss. But again, it's like how do you respond? It makes me think of that because the guy who won it this year, who ended up beating Rory 2 years or last year or 2 years ago, he lost it. You know, in a very similar way, but he stuck around and congratulated the winner, and you shake hands and you kind of do the whole thing. You know, like just that sportsmanship side of it. And so yeah, it's interesting to see how you respond and
Right there,
in those
like,
situations.
so there, I saw this photo of like a college football player. He was the only guy from his team watching the other team, uh, their ceremony of them winning,
Right,
right? It's probably a well-known photo, and I remember reading the caption. I was like, this guy's like, this is fuel for him.
right,
Like he's gonna remember this next year when they're,
right,
maybe in the same situation, right?
right,
And it's like, I guess from a psychological perspective, it's like, your willingness to look at something that brings you discomfort,
right,
right? It's like I lost. No, I'm gonna wait here. I'm gonna watch this ceremony. I'm gonna
right,
remember what this feels like.
right.
Remember how close I got, and you remember, maybe like think about like what work you need to do to get the results you want
Right.
the
To
next
get
time,
back here, but be on the other side of
right?
it. Yeah, it's cool.
So going back to that, like that big fight with Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier, it's like that guy has fought so many people who held the belt.
Right.
And in any other era, he likely would have been someone who held the belt. 'Cause
Right.
very good fighter
Yes.
and really good all around, right?
Yeah.
But man, he was just born at a time where there were just people who were extraordinary in his weight
Right.
class, right? From
Right.
like Charles Oliveira to Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? So Khabib is on the same team as the guy who just fought him and beat him as well, right? And like Khabib like just mauled the guy, took him to the ground and just choked him out,
Oh,
right? In
wow.
like 2 or 3 rounds. You know, like those 3 guys come to mind, and you know, he fought a couple other people, like, and it's like, man, all these guys are gonna go down to the Hall of Fame, right?
Right.
They're just so extraordinary. You just happen to be
Tough to be born at a time when you're in
You're
that
right. You were
class,
born
that
in like
that
I don't know,
group.
1988. You wanted
Yeah.
to be a fighter. Tough luck, man. There's
Yeah.
all these guys that like one of them's from Brazil, Charles Oliveira, right? They
Right.
grew up rough upbringing, like worked in a tire shop kind of deal, or that might have been a different guy, but tough upbringing, right? Grew up
Mhm.
in poverty. Fighting was like the only thing he had going for him.
Right.
The odds he overcame as a child, like he was basically told, his mother was told in the hospital, like, "Oh, this kid will never be athletic,
Wow.
let alone like a dominant, dominant like MMA fighter."
Right.
You know, Khabib and Islam coming from Dagestan, like this weird area near Russia, right? And they're just growing up in the mountains, very simple life, and all they do is train, right?
It's cool.
Multiple times a day. It's like, sorry, Dustin, but
Yeah.
Louisiana ain't cutting it, right?
No, exactly. Whatever training program you're
You
on.
know, and I don't know if he had like accolades in the high school and college level, but another fighter he fought, Justin Gaethje, was like a collegiate wrestler, right? So like just very dominant like athletic background, and
Yeah.
how do they handle these situations, particularly as they start aging and recognizing my career's coming to an end,
Right.
right? Like if let's say the Oilers lose, like for McDavid, it's like he'll for sure remember that. He'll know what needs to be done for
Yeah.
the next time. He seems like he's that kind of
Yeah.
athlete and individual. But he's got time,
Yeah.
right? Whereas, if you're someone like Sidney Crosby,
Right.
right, who had a very dominant early career,
Yeah.
young career, or throughout, right?
Yeah. It'd be tough.
He's like what, 36?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
He's upwards of 33,
Yeah, I
which
think he's
means
about.
that
I know. I think
he's
he's like similar to my age. I
yeah.
think so.
He's on the other half of his career, and maybe in the last quarter of it, right? How do you handle these things with grace, right?
Yeah.
Because that's going to happen to you in life, right?
It's gonna happen. It's coming.
Weird.
Yeah, it does say
and
a lot about you.
Yeah, it might not be from an athletic point of view, but it's like maybe someone else gets a promotion, right? Or like,
That's right.
you start a business and it fails, right? Or like everyday interactions with people, right?
Yeah.
So
I think
I guess
yeah.
all of this started from a conversation of what I was going to do over the summer, but
No, but I think it's honestly, it's such a good. I think it is a good lesson. It's something I think about all the time. How do you, when you look from the outside in, how would you want yourself to respond in those situations? And then, yeah, paying attention to how you actually respond when things get tough. It says a lot about you. But
Mhm. Yeah, it makes me think. It's like there's nothing really like that in school, I would say.
No.
Because there's so many, like that's another thing too, to pay attention to like how you speak about the circumstances that cause you to lose,
yeah,
right?
but there is in school too. You look at exams. You write a bad test, or you.
So what
You
I was
know
going
what
to
I
say, for
mean?
many kids, they'll just cop out. Like, I don't really care about school.
Right,
Well, that's a
exactly.
cop out, right? Like the sour grapes kind of story,
Yes.
right? It's like, well, I don't really care about school. Okay, but like, what does it say about you that you weren't even able to pass this test, or
And here's one: when you get a test back that you blew,
Yeah.
what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Like, I pay attention. I notice when students get a test back, what do you do with it when it didn't go well?
Yeah.
Do you jam it into the bottom of your bag and shove all your books
Never
on
look
top
at
of it
it
and
again.
never look at it again?
Yeah.
Or there's some people that take it and dissect it and look at everything they got wrong and figure out where they went wrong. Man.
And then
you
they come
just
back
know.
better,
And then you
right?
come back better and you knock the next one out of the water. It's just so interesting to kind of watch the reaction. And it's true of students, it's true of me. Everybody
it's human, right?
face, it's human. Everybody faces
behavior.
those things, just different things at different points in their life. But yeah, I'd argue there's hardly anything more important in terms of like a character trait that is going to lend itself to like
Mhm.
successfulness in the long run than the ability to really like
Yeah.
look at yourself and how you respond to those failures and because they're coming. So
Right. And like what I've found with martial arts, with jiu-jitsu is it's like there's no one else to blame, right?
yeah, that's true.
So I was sparring with a guy, and obviously you got to take reality into consideration. Like if you're sparring with someone who's 250, like for me, if I'm sparring with someone who's 215 pounds,
Hmm.
they're potentially 40, like 35 pounds heavier than me.
Right.
And that's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
Some of the guys and girls are kind of doing this almost full time, right? And I'm not.
Right.
I'm barely doing it part time. And so keeping those things in mind to,
Yeah.
not, let's say, get too downtrodden, right?
Right.
But when you got that dog in you, right? It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I don't care that I train once every 2 weeks. Like I
Right.
know what I'm doing,
Right.
I know what I'm doing with the limited scope of what I'm doing.
Right. The amount of time that you're able to put in, and
I wasn't able to get the result that I would have liked.
yeah.
Okay. This guy, submitted me. In that moment, like, in this particular scenario, like I told him, like, hey man, that was a nice arm bar, right?
Mhm.
But inside I was acknowledging, like, gee, the only reason he caught you in that was because you panicked, right? You noticed it was coming, you panicked, you skipped a step,
Right.
and you got caught.
Right.
Never do that again, right?
Right.
Don't be a dummy. Don't
Yeah.
do that again. There's no reason to panic, right? And this guy's very proficient, so I know that he's not just gonna yank. Like, oh, I got this guy's
Right,
arm. Like,
yeah.
let me get my submission of the day, right?
Yeah.
He's not gonna panic. He's not gonna like overreact, right?
Right.
But regardless, had you done what you knew you should have,
Yes.
when you should have, instead of trying to skip steps, good chance you wouldn't have been in that scenario,
Right.
right? And it was so annoying because like the last 30 seconds of the round, and I was doing pretty well.
Yeah.
I'll acknowledge that he was tired. Like he sparred with someone that was very
Yeah.
proficient, more proficient than him before, right? It's like, okay, good. This bigger guy's he's a little tired it out, right?
Right.
So he won't just like squish me, right? But the technique is still there, right? But yeah, like having that conversation, it's like, what did you do wrong? It's like,
Yeah.
well, I panicked. Like I tried skipping steps. I tried taking shortcuts.
Yep.
Where did that lead me? Where I didn't want to be.
Right.
Right. If I hadn't done that, if I had just slow and calmly moved through the steps that I needed to do,
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe he still gets it, but at least I could go home knowing that, like,
Yeah.
damn, like I did what I needed to, but shit, this guy's good.
Exactly.
Like
Would
not only did he do what he needed to do, he appropriately and rapidly adjusted to what I was doing
Right.
in the moment.
right.
That's tough.
And what are you gonna
right?
do next time?
You know, it's like I mentioned that CFL guy before, right? Like, I want to say it was in the same round, actually. And this is something cool as well that like sports will teach you, or at least, having that growth mindset, right? It applies everywhere. So I was sparring with him. He went into that turtle defensive position, and I kind of followed him with my arm, and he just grabbed me and threw me. Now I'm on my back. And as I'm on my back, like immediately, like my body's responding, but my brain's thinking. My brain's saying to myself, like, you dummy, what were you thinking? Like, this guy is significantly larger than you. He's
Right.
heavier than you. He's stronger than you. And he's more skilled than you, right? He's a
Right.
purple belt, right? And he's legit. What the hell were you thinking, right? Like you throw all your weight over. You probably weigh like a feather to this
Right.
guy, right? He can probably squat 300 to 500 pounds, right? And like bench press, everything, right?
Yeah.
This guy's arms, no joke. I swear, his arms are probably about the size of my legs,
Yeah.
right? It's huge. And then he probably led to a submission or whatever, like whatever ended up happening. Like 2 minutes later, we're in the exact same position, and because I've done that process of looking at where the mistake was made,
Right.
the next time, like I didn't do the same thing, and there was a moment of pause and hesitation, and I kind of laughed. I was like, "Yo, you're not gonna get me twice." No, 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 no. I'm not some silly white belt anymore. Like I'm not
Yeah,
falling for that
yeah.
twice, right? But
you
learning,
think-
it's like, a lot of times the reason you don't get the result you want is either because you didn't have the appropriate information,
Yeah.
or the appropriate execution, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, those are two things. They're very simple, but they require a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
Right. and they require a lot of character, right? Like the appropriate execution is sometimes about patience and is sometimes about moving rapidly, being aggressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And both of those are virtues.
Yes, they are.
So coming back to the school thing, it's like, yeah, I guess my initial assessment was incorrect, right? Like those opportunities do exist in
Yeah,
school.
I
It's
think so
just it's
too.
very easy to cop out on them. Be
Yeah,
like,
it is.
well, this is kind of stupid. It's boring. What do we need social for? What do we
Yeah,
need science for? I'm not
exactly.
going to do any of this after high school. Whatever. This is dumb. You're just coping.
Yeah.
You're just coping,
Yeah.
right?
Own
Because
it. Own it.
yeah, own it, right? I was a serial non-studier in school, so my grades were very average,
Right.
right? And one of the things I regret about that, not that I do regret it, is just like not knowing, like, oh, could I have gotten 80s and 90s,
Right.
right? Like, could I have done that?
Right.
Maybe, right? Like, I sort of started figuring it out in my last year of university,
Yeah.
right? Too little, too late, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have a chance to now be like, okay, like I did really well in high school with these habits,
Yeah.
these building these characteristics, these developing myself,
Right.
got these good results, carried it through to university, right? Instead, my memories looking back are like not studying for diplomas
Right.
when they were 50%,
Yeah.
um, checking out of a class when I thought that like Miss Christensen's math 30-1 class, like after like the third unit, I was like,
Thought you got nothing to offer out of it.
I was paying full attention to what you were doing. I was following it, and it just is not making sense.
Right.
And I'm not able to replicate that.
Right.
Totally fine, right? Because in high school I had no issue writing essays, right? Especially getting them started, which everyone struggled with. Like, oh, okay, I don't mind not being able to do math. I got a couple units well, right? And then
Right.
and there was that middle chunk where it was like none of this makes sense. And then towards the end, you get to like perms and cons,
Yep.
right? You get
Yeah,
to
yeah.
like the factorials and whatnot. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm breezing. This is easy. Like, should have done this 2 units ago,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, should have boosted me up before you
Little
dropped me,
confidence
right?
builder.
Yeah. So like, those opportunities are there to build character.
I
all the
think so
time.
too.
And what more do you have other than your character, right?
I agree.
What more do you keep? Oh, actually, this question is kind of interesting. Because I asked this to my buddy. And I guess it might not even speak to your value system. Like, so the question is like, what would you rather have? Like a Ferrari, let's say like a $500,000 vehicle, or the ability, the knowledge to make the money to be able to afford a $500,000 vehicle? Like, what would you rather have?
Well, I know what the right answer is. You know what I mean?
No, what's the right
And I
answer?
love a Ferrari.
Uh-huh.
But I think, like, actually, truly, I'd rather have the knowledge, don't you think?
Yeah, that was my answer.
100%. Like, the car would be cool, but I mean,
It ain't cool when you hit a
it's
pothole.
not cool. No, exactly.
Right, and
That's
you
what I
can't
mean.
make
Like, that
Ferrari money.
knowledge,
Yeah.
like, the ability to do it. And I don't know. I think don't get me wrong, driving a Ferrari would be sick. But,
Yeah.
I don't know that you get the same level of enjoyment and like satisfaction out of driving it when you get it handed to you. You know what I mean? Like,
Unless it's a one-off,
versus-
right?
yeah, I know,
Like if you're
but I
like,
mean, there is
you know,
something
rich,
about
rich parents,
Yeah, that's
dad got money in it, and yeah, it's
For
like
sure.
your everyday, and you didn't earn it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
for sure, and like, yeah, exactly. If somebody
But
just
if it was a
offered you
one-off,
Ferrari-
I think you would.
yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
I think so too, but
I don't
to the
think you
same
think so.
extent,
I don't think you. Yeah.
maybe not to the same extent. I think there's something about I don't know. It's kind of
Well-
like if you won the lottery. Like,
Yeah.
would you? I'm not even sure.
Because you'd still be yourself with all your insecurities and fears,
Yes.
with all your not just insecurity, but like your incapableness of replicating a result.
Yeah.
But you have a result,
Yeah, you
right?
do. But like,
That was given to you.
yes, you do. But
So-
but
So I think maybe that's what you're alluding to. That like, sure, you have a Ferrari, but you know deep down, this was a handout.
it was a handout.
Right. And
Whereas-
someone looks at you like, "Hey, David's got a Ferrari. Like he must be put together." Like, actually, I just stumbled upon it, right? Some
Exactly.
Saudi prince left it
Yeah.
in his garage, and I bought
Exactly.
it. I bought that little like storage unit.
Exactly. I
Like,
chose rather than the wisdom to be able to
yeah,
earn it
yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
I actually believe that though. I actually wonder sometimes if I mean, like, okay, obviously I would take the lottery if I could win the lottery, but I actually wonder sometimes if I'd want to. You know what I mean? Just because they say sometimes money just makes you like more of kind of what you already are. You know,
Mhm.
like it's like you say all your insecurities, it just magnifies them. And but if you're like good with money, it strengthens it. And I don't know, just the ability to be able to do it yourself. And I don't know, I think there's
Just
something to
know
it.
that like, and then I think that that has the potential. Like, if you have that knowledge, it has the potential to put things in their appropriate place, right?
Yeah,
So it's
I think so too.
perhaps like a religious idea that like, you know, if you are diligent, let's say you can make the money to have numerous Ferraris. If you're
Right.
diligent, you'll also mentally prepare yourself to know what life is like without that.
Exactly.
And when it gets taken away, if you have the knowledge, you can
You
get it
build it
back,
back.
right?
Oh, 100 times.
And I've heard stories where many people say like, the first time making $1 million was the hardest,
Right.
but like they lost it all. The second time it's much easier,
Right.
and potentially the third time. Like, as
Exactly.
they do it more and more, right? And that's true of anything, right? The first time you throw a basketball at the net from 3 point
It's
line,
hard.
like, maybe you brick it off the backboard and you fall short, or like it goes way over the net, right?
Yeah.
Whoa, okay, let me try that again. Like the 10th time, it's like, okay. The 100th time you've done it, it's like, okay, I know roughly what pressure I need to put to get it towards the actual rim,
Yeah.
right? And if you're like Steph Curry, you've done it like 10,000 times.
Yeah, I saw some
To the
thing on
point where
it.
like maybe you're like working on individual finger, like paying
Right.
attention to that mindfulness.
Right.
You know exactly what to do with your hand,
Yeah.
right? Get the ball in every time,
Yeah. I think I take that.
right?
Although if somebody actually offered me a Ferrari, I don't know. We'd have to actually see. But I'm not sure. See if I ever actually get put in the position, but I think that's what I choose.
I don't know. My approach to it was like, if you just gave me a Ferrari right now, and what I know about Ferraris, which apparently they're notorious for breaking down,
Are they?
that's what I've heard.
Oh, probably.
Maybe not all of them, but
I
like,
don't know. I've always wanted a Ferrari, so
oh, man,
see.
they're nice cars,
I know.
right? Get a nice red Ferrari.
Maybe not in Edmonton. I'm not sure. Yeah, exactly.
But what I've heard is like, they are notorious perhaps for their maintenance,
Right.
right? If you just insert a Ferrari into like my life right now, it's like, okay, the second it needs maintenance, well, I guess that thing's parked then,
Yeah, she's parked.
or it's going up on Kijiji
Yeah.
for the next highest bidder, right? Like whoever's got Ferrari money.
Yeah, anybody
know?
in Edmonton looking for a Ferrari.
I had it
Think
for
so
like,
too.
until it had an issue, and
No,
took all my photos. Right,
exactly.
our photographer got a photo shoot done,
Exactly.
did some videography,
Hope you enjoyed it.
right?
I think so too.
But
Funny.
yeah, my friend and I kind of discussed that, and yeah, it's a tough one, right? Especially if you don't have a Ferrari. But I think, the knowledge will always kind of stay with you no matter where you are.
I think
Right?
so
And,
too. I think it's important. I think it's an important thing to think about.
if you're given the Ferrari, you can have the Ferrari taken away, and then you just go back to you, right?
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, so I think that what I was gonna say is like, when you have the knowledge to do these things and then you get them, you have perhaps more potential for being able to put them in their right place. Meaning that like, if I got a Ferrari, all of a sudden, maybe I'm acting different. I'm just a whole different person. I got a Ferrari. What do you got? What are you driving? Right? Who are you? I have a Ferrari, right? And you're idolizing this thing,
Yes.
which you shouldn't be, right? And your hierarchy is out of
Whack. I
because
think so too.
because somebody gave you a Ferrari, now you think
Right.
you're better than everyone
Yeah.
else, right? Or granddad or dad was very rich and they
Yeah.
inheritance. I was just watching the show recently, The Gentleman, right? There's a
Oh,
movie.
yeah.
There's a
Yes.
movie by Guy Ritchie, and he made a show.
Yes.
But the show looks at the less of the criminal aspect, the drug dealing aspect, and more at the lords and ladies whose property they use to grow the product,
Right.
right? So the show starts off with the eldest son being skipped for the inheritance,
Okay.
and he's furious.
Right.
And he, by all rights, he's a screw up, but you kind of just see like the show shows how like one sibling has no regard for the money. It's like, yeah, we're lords and late, like their family's actually the duke,
Okay.
right? So, and I don't know exactly how that plays into the royal
Yeah.
family, but this guy doesn't really care,
Right.
right? They've kind of always grown up on this giant property with people in their house working there and whatnot, and not that they really go into the snobby aspect of it, but you can tell that this guy has no care for like everyday things
Right.
and just loves the high life, right?
Right.
Um, so I think the things are just given to you. You don't really know how to adjust to them. You haven't necessarily moved up the ladder in life to like deal with people who might want to like prey upon you,
Yeah.
right? So the oldest son gets preyed upon by like
Right.
random people, but the second son, the character is introduced. He's like a captain in the UN peacekeeping force, right? Or like the UN, part of the UN's like, yeah, I guess they
Yeah.
only have peacekeeping force. It's like, okay, so he's well situated in a hierarchy and he's moved his way up,
Right.
right? And he's like a confident, dominant kind of individual, kind of driven and is able to make decisions,
Right.
right? So when older brother gets skipped for him, he's able to like make decisions on for the well-being of the family.
Yeah.
Right? And I would say that kind of has very clear connections to that question that
Yeah.
like, okay, you open up the will, David gets a Ferrari. What's David going to do 2 weeks
think
from
so,
now,
too.
right? Whereas, if David already has 10 of his own Ferraris because he built a business and
Yeah.
you open the will, it's like, okay, another one.
Okay.
At that point, it's maybe like, oh God, I know that one's got so many problems. I'm going to get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
So, you have more likelihood for putting those things in their
I think so,
appropriate
too.
place. Right?
It's a good question. I think it's an important one to think about.
Mm-hmm. You got any
These are-
questions?
And these are all good. It's just nice to sit down and chat.
That's true.
It's just nice
true.
to.
What are you hoping for next year? Like, what would you like your schedule to look like?
Uh,
What was your schedule this year exactly? Like both semesters?
So I did. I had a couple math. So I had like math 30-1, calculus, physics.
Math 30-1, calculus.
Or first semester's math 30-1, physics 30, chem and science.
Chem 30?
Chem 20.
Chem 20, science 10.
Yeah, science 10.
Okay.
And then I had calculus and physics 20. And
Oh, that's funny. So your day just got progressively more and more like chaotic with students.
yeah, the classes got bigger. Yeah, that's literally what it was. My classes progressively got bigger throughout the day and slightly make more chaotic.
Yeah.
So by the end of the day, we were just, yeah. It was good though.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't really have a lot of I'm good for whatever it ends up looking like, and
It's good to get you through the afternoon slump.
yeah,
Right.
oh yeah, because you gotta be
It's like
on
being
it in the afternoon.
30 level math and physics, like so much brain.
Yeah.
And those kids are there to learn.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's
Oh, that's
probably
fun.
not a whole lot of like, okay, I gotta like deal with 7 kids talking,
No.
right?
No.
And you get to the afternoon where it's like the material might feel really brain dead to you, or like, oh, this is so basic.
No, I never feel like that.
Oh,
I
okay.
get such a draw off of like
Oh, that's
just
awesome.
being there. I don't know when you I don't know. I just find when you're teaching, it all just kind of fades away. Like I just enjoy it. You know what I mean? Everything else just kind of fades. I don't know. I really
That's interesting. I know, like, I struggle with like brain drain, right? So like
Yeah.
by the third block or fourth block, especially both semesters, I had 9s in the morning.
Yeah.
Block A and block C.
right.
Right. So the afternoons aren't good for me to
It
begin
is tough.
with.
I'm
and
not
then
really,
repeating the
yeah.
same material. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I gotta talk about this same article I read several years ago, and maybe my thing should just be, staying more informed,
Yeah.
right? Knowing what's going on, but unfortunately for a social studies teacher, I hate looking at the news.
Yeah. Well, that does make it tough.
Yeah.
But I'm such a morning person. By the afternoons, I do get kind of tired. But and then like once I start teaching, then I'm kind of like in it, and I don't really like think about being tired. But by the end of the day, it's kind of tiring. But yeah, like you say, I don't really worry too much about, I don't know, whatever my schedule looks like. I'm just, I don't
Uh-huh.
know. I'm excited. I got lots of ideas and stuff for next year and what I kind of want to do different and add
What
in. And
what are some of those things
maybe
that,
just try and do some more field trips and try and do some more like
oh, science field trips
practical
would be
kind of, you
so
know what I
cool.
mean? Like I think there's just more opportunities and as I was getting into it this year, the last 2 years, like, I'm kind of just trying to wrap my head around exactly like making sure I get all of the everything covered. But now you kind of realize you have a little bit of time to be able to do some of those things, which I think are so important because that's where you go and make those real world connections. So I'm kind of excited about that
Do
for
you
next
still
year.
have some of the connections to the time, like from the people when you used to work in construction, when
Yeah,
you did engineering?
yeah. And for physics, it
Is
could
there
be,
is there possibility to access that and
oh,
maybe get
probably.
the kids to do a tour of, let's say, like a construction site or a bridge?
Yeah.
I mean, not a whole lot of bridges being built in
No.
Edmonton, but
But no, I mean, yeah,
well,
exactly.
what
There's tons of,
technically, because I'm thinking bridges going over water. I mean, they're building one right
oh
outside of
yeah,
Leduc.
exactly.
Technically, right?
Yep.
That would
Oh
that
yeah.
count as a bridge? No.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I just noticed today, like as coming into work, the paving, like I don't know what you call that, the grading they did on the exit looks completely different today than it did
Yeah,
yesterday,
I know.
right? That would be so cool to watch,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
at least for me to
exactly.
talk about.
And how do you
Because
actually do that? It is neat. You know what I mean? I don't know. I kind of think, but I'm in that
well,
world, but I
how
like
many
it. But
people do you think just think like, yeah, they just pour cement or asphalt on the ground?
just start, just
It's like,
start
yeah,
bulldozing, moving dirt
it's like,
around,
oh, why
and
can't they build a road here?
yeah.
Well, as far as I'm aware, and probably this was like 10 years ago, I was told that 1 kilometer of road costs $1 million to make.
Mm,
I don't know if,
I don't know actually.
okay,
I don't know that number.
well, fact check yourself, kids.
But it is cool in physics. You talk about,
But
yeah,
you know, the point with that is that like, why is it so expensive? Well, if you're in your mind, you're just like, we'll just pour some like cement
yeah,
down.
exactly.
That
Make a
is
road.
not how that
Make a
works, right?
road.
We
Yeah,
are not on horse carriage
yeah,
and foot anymore, right?
yeah.
Right? But like, they dig like almost a foot to a meter, I think,
Oh yeah.
and layer things, right?
Oh
They
yeah.
put in different
Exactly.
layers of things underneath the cement to be
Yeah.
able to handle that much weight,
Yeah.
dissipate the force, to
For
make sure the
sure.
road stays where you put it,
Yeah,
right?
and how do you bank the roads? And it's something we
Yeah.
talk about physics and how you bank the road so that if it's really slippery, you don't slide off. And yeah, there's tons of cool science and
Hmm.
physics and things like that. Or going to a distillery for cam, or I don't know. There's just lots of kind of cool things. So I'm hoping next year I can kind of work a little bit more of that in. And I guess
It's,
you're not quite sure what next fall will be.
I was joking with some of the kids, like, "Oh, what are you doing next year? Where are you working?" He's like, "I don't know. I might be rapidly hurtling towards unemployment." Right? Like,
Man,
who knows?
you're gonna be busy.
Yeah,
Wherever
yeah.
you land, they're
I
gonna be
hope.
really lucky to have you.
Thank you, thank you.
They really are.
Um, so I think I mentioned to you, I moved really close to Strathcona High School,
Yes.
like, and I've heard good things about the place.
Yeah.
It's walking distance, so that would be like primo.
That'd be awesome.
Harry Ainley is a close drive from my house as well, and I've gotten a tour of that school.
Yes.
That would be pretty cool. And
Yeah.
I know their basketball coaches as well, so I know
Right.
some teachers there, and
Yeah.
could maybe just hang out, chat about the program. I don't know if I'd my first year in a new school, in a big school, I'd want to just like, yeah, I'll jump into like this, and this, but hey, if I'm already familiar with it, and they're probably always looking for help,
Oh yeah.
sure, right? I would love to. This might be challenging, but like I'd love to keep working with Griffin, Ruseth, and Lauren
Yeah.
as assistant coaches. Um, keep building and developing myself in that regard. Like I've been kind of going through this book, which I'm going to make videos about over the summer. Um, John Maxwell book.
Oh yeah.
It's up here. You see it? It's kind of like blowing, but the 17 indisputable laws of teamwork.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
been kind of going through that and looking at that and like leadership stuff as well. And so just getting more opportunities to keep doing that, right? Um, which might be tough if like all of my connections are in Leduc and now I'm in Edmonton, right? Whereas before it's like, oh hey, like it was pretty easy to get kids to come back and like want to help out with the school and then
Yes.
appreciate the opportunity. But yeah, so like Skona, Harry Ainley, both very close. But I did do like a lot of GPSing before I confirmed moving into that place. Like
Smart.
McNally would be really close. That'd be cool. I think my niece is gonna go to that school
Okay.
next year. Wagner's close as well, although the train tracks are so near to it that I don't want to deal with that. Vimy Ridge.
Yeah.
But like I'm really hoping for, Skona, McNally,
Something kind of close.
or
And
Harry Ainley.
and those big schools, you could learn so much from them. And,
I, I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm trying to stay hopeful. Like I don't want somebody like to put their thumb on me like, hey, this is what you gotta do.
yeah.
We don't know what you're doing down in Leduc in that
Right.
backwater school, right? Like, so
Yeah.
hopefully I don't experience that. Hopefully I don't just get canned to like grade 10.
Yeah.
You will see me on the job application for when Mr. Olson retires. If that's the case. Like,
Yeah.
Jeep Quadra, yeah, you're the grade 10 guy now, right?
Right.
Like, hey, listen,
Yeah.
you gotta give me some variety, right?
Oh, but
Like,
you'd be, yeah,
mhm.
you're gonna crush it no matter where you are. And
Thank you.
man, I've learned a ton from you. Honestly, I just have to say, like, just the way you know, relationship build with students and staff, and you know, the the manner in which you teach. It's so, I don't know. I kind of try and model like you have a very practical, real life approach.
Mhm.
And I don't know, it's just fun to watch you interact with students and in the halls, and you're such a strong relationship builder, and it's
Mhm.
and you make social, really approachable, because it's like, for me, social was never really my thing, but I just see how, what, like, you connect with students, and then a lot of them get drawn in, just because you got such a cool way of building relationships, and getting to know them. And anyways,
Mhm.
at the same man, it's
Thank you.
been a lot of fun.
Man, it's been great to, work alongside you as well, right?
Yeah.
Like talking to kids, like, hey, like, how's Murphy's class? And they're always like, oh, he's so excited to talk to us about like different examples, throwing like a story about maybe his family or his kids, but like, yeah, he gets so fired up about like science, and we love it. It's like, oh, that's awesome, right? Like,
Oh, that's
because yeah, like that passion part,
yeah.
especially in the classroom, right? And then your willingness, man, like find a tutor, kids. Like Mr. Murphy's gonna have 5 kids next year, 5 of his own kids, right? Like,
Yeah, it could be.
oh, we want to see him before school, lunchtime, and after school. Like, hey, there's this thing called tutors, right? I got the school offers like they're always advertising every year. I've been here like, oh, there's like this thing they can give you free tutoring, or
Sure.
like, you can get tutoring through the school. Like, hey,
Sure.
if you're some like grade 9, grade 10 scrub, like a grade 12 who's got their life together, like a guy like Jerome,
Yeah.
can totally help you
Yeah,
for
for
a
sure.
variety of subjects. And you're gonna have to find. I think I don't know how well he does in like the humanities,
Mhm.
but I would assume for sure on the sciences
I think so
he's
too.
top
I
tier,
think there's
right?
lots of
Right.
students available.
But I'm sure there's a humanities version of Jerome,
Yeah.
right? Whether or not they're willing to tutor. But hey,
Yeah.
$20 an hour can be very convincing, right?
Yeah, that is for sure. This is a
Um,
good point.
But seeing you over the years, just kind of step into some pretty big shoes, right? Like Miss
Yeah.
Miss McMullen left, I think, and you took over her
Yeah.
contract, okay,
Yeah.
and then Miss Kraus left right away as well, and then like the whole science department just it's like, whoa, okay, we just lost a significant chunk of experience.
Yeah.
But like, hey, we have Mr. Murphy. Right? He's got like real world experience, like, worked in the industry, has a master's of engineering and up to a master's of engineering education, worked like, practical jobs outside of just being a teacher,
Yeah.
right? To bring in like that, like understanding. I haven't been in your class, but I'm assuming you talked to them about like, this is how this thing works in the
Yeah.
real world, right?
Try to.
Like, I try to do that as well. And like, I feel like that is like the connection that maybe we didn't get in our own education of like,
Yeah.
like, I still remember Mr. Maroney's social class. I love the guy, right? But waking up out of, no, not literally waking up. I wasn't sleeping in class ever. I never fell asleep in class except for one time in university. And that was because I pulled an all-nighter to finish an essay for like a class. I felt so bad there's guest presenters. But like,
It happens.
Maroney would go on and on for like 80 minutes every day, no PowerPoint, off the noggin every day. And there was like, I remember like waking up out of a haze and like, why is Maroney talking about Napoleon's penis? What is going on? What? And nobody had the courage to ask, like, you know,
What's going on?
like, why are we talking about this? I don't know if it was Napoleon or Hitler, like one of the two, right? But it was like looking at my buddy, like whisper, like, what's he talking
How did we
about?
get here?
Like,
Yeah.
like we don't know. We don't know. We're just,
Nobody knows.
you know,
Just along for the ride.
we're just here. But you know, that ability to connect the information, and he was a very good like, you know, narrator. He could just
Right.
talk and talk. And I think previously he had worked with making documentaries.
Oh yeah.
But for sure, my social 30 teacher, that guy didn't care at all. I'll go on the record and say that. You know, the older I get, the more experience I get teaching. Like, I understand why. It's like you're teaching people that do not care, that cannot sometimes comprehend those pieces together and why they
Right.
should know them. So I can understand why they checked out. But, like, regardless, it's like that ability, like, and I've seen you do it, and I try to do it as well, to like bring things down to a practical level. It's like, okay, how do I explain, you know, national interest
Right.
to you that way you'd understand it?
Right.
It's like, well, kids, what do you want?
Yeah.
You want it to be summer? That's your nation. That's your interest.
Yeah.
What can you do to make that happen?
Right.
Not much.
No.
Right?
That's true.
Hey, you want a job? Oh, sweet. What do you got to do? Right? What countries do the same thing? And it's like, you try your best, and with some
Thanks.
with some
Yeah.
groups you just see like, oh, nobody is listening, and other groups like, okay, like I got one kid,
Yeah.
that kid understands better.
Right.
My job is done.
Yeah. Keep
You'll see
feeling-
me in the hallways,
Yeah.
kids. Like, my job is
You
done. That
see-
kid gets it. They were paying attention. The other kids are on their phone. My job's done. I'll be in the hallways
Yeah.
chatting with students. But yeah, I think that, and I think for science as well, like, unfortunately, maybe I shouldn't say this on the record, but like, so much of the curriculum is just so out of touch with like practicality. It's so much designed for like, let's get them to university,
Right.
and then they'll do
Yeah,
this,
I
and then
think
you get
a
to
lot of that is
university.
true.
And I'm sure you did so many things in engineering that like you never really did again
Oh yeah.
as an actual like
Right.
hired engineer.
Yeah. No, that's true.
But to be able to bring it down and explain like, well, why is this happening? How should we think about this?
Right.
What are some ideas we could have about this?
Right.
And how does this relate to the real world? Right.
Yeah.
You know, like, I want to say, like, I will never forget centripetal forces because my physics teacher, or whoever taught me that, explained it like a tire. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, that's interesting. She's like, hey, you know, like, you kids ever gone like really fast on a turn? All the time.
Sure. Yeah.
You ever seen me drive? Right? I learned it from dad.
Yeah.
You know, occasionally he does that as well, right?
Sure.
It's like, you notice how, like, you know, the car's going this way and you're going that way. It's like, those are centripetal forces, right?
Right.
It's like, and if you weren't strapped down to the vehicle, like, you'd fly out. It's like, well, why is that? Like,
Right.
as you kind of like move, and I forgot the physics
Yeah.
portion of it, but I remember that bit. But
Yeah.
like, you know, the way she had explained, Miss Gibbons, the way she had explained that was like, it just stuck.
Stuck. Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
remember
All those years later.
Anything else from
All
physics,
those years later.
other than my buddy Robin was good at it, and unfortunately the seating plan had him way over there. So I was like,
Didn't
well,
help you.
I'm toast,
Yeah.
right? When me and Robin were sitting like in the same row, right? I was in front of him.
Yeah.
I just turned around like, yo, Robin, like, how do you do this? And he explained it to me. Great. I don't want to ask Miss Gibbons because she's kind of intimidating. Right? And
Yeah.
the lessons is done. She's clearly done. She's at her desk. It's our time to figure
Right.
it out, right? Which you kids don't do anymore, right? Like cell phones were just starting to
Yeah.
kind of become a thing.
Yeah.
But there was no Snapchat, there was no
Right.
TikTok, there was barely Instagram in
Right.
grade 11. Matter of fact, it might have just come out in grade 11 when I was in grade 11. And, you know, Facebook was only so, like, Facebook was not what it was today,
Yeah.
right? Because back then, kids, it was the place to be after MSN.
It was. There was a time.
After
There was a
MSN
time.
Messenger.
100%.
The AOL Messenger, there was Facebook, and then, you know, it went to Instagram, Snapchat. But, you know, she'd teach her a lesson. She'd go sit down at her desk. Maybe she's marking, do whatever. As a student, this is something I've been thinking about.
Right.
As a student, like, I think back, like, I had zero continuity of what my teachers would do when I wasn't in class with them.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'd be like, yeah, this fucking guy's just sitting at his desk the whole time.
Yeah.
Never crossed my mind once. He has 3 other classes.
Yeah.
Maybe he's marking
Totally.
essays,
Yeah,
right?
you
Or
don't
maybe
know.
doing something else,
Yeah.
right?
You don't think about that.
You know, never crossed my mind once as a student.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to think like, do some of these kids not realize like I have 3 other classes that
Yeah.
like all have assignments,
Right.
right?
Life
They
goes
don't have
on.
exams, right? It's like, okay, I'm done teaching this lesson. I can't babysit you. Like I have essays to mark,
Right.
and I stopped getting paid at 320 kids. They know that. They know that. They've heard that from me. um, but like the way she would explain that, and that just stuck, right? And I can't really tell you much other than physics, aside from my Robin story, and
Yeah.
that during the physics 30 review, I was so clueless. During the first day of physics 30, I was so clueless because I thought she started physics 30, but she was doing the physics 20 review missing.
But you didn't know. It's not a good sign.
I was like, I don't even know Robin was near me. I think it was a different one. I was like, brother, when did we learn this? Like, man, it's like unit 3.
The entire.
How do you remember that? Like, what are you talking about? I don't remember any of this. None of this is making sense. I'm dropping this class. There's no hope for me. Just talking about like thermodynamics and all that. I think they do that in physics.
Yeah, Cam, we talk about.
Oh,
or-
okay.
yeah, a little about that.
There you
It
go,
makes it
right?
very-
That's how bad I am at physics, right? So just talking about some things that we were gonna learn. I was like, yo, that sounds very hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I dropped Chem 30 as well, so I could have confused
It
which
really,
it was the same.
it all
teacher,
makes
too,
together. Yeah, exactly.
30 level sciences were not my thing other than bio and science 30,
Right.
but
That's the thing, though. If you can make some of those things stick and you remember them how many years later, then I gotta do a little more of that.
right?
Yeah.
And we've had the discussion of like, how many good, maybe we had this,
Yeah.
like, how many good lessons you need in a course
Right.
for kids to really remember, like, wow, that was an awesome course.
Exactly.
And I'd say the number is probably small, like five really cool, unique lessons.
Yeah.
And five's probably on the high amount for
Probably. Some of them, honestly.
I don't have really any memories from school. Like, wow, that was a really awesome lesson.
Yeah.
Other than like Mr. Maroney's like awesomeness,
Right.
just lecturing.
Yeah. Well, maybe that'll
quirkiness,
be
right?
maybe that's my goal then. Try and make a few awesome ones.
But it's been awesome to work alongside you.
Yeah, it has been.
I'm gonna
Thank
miss
you.
that.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Me too.
you got to make a YouTube channel. You got to start putting this stuff out there.
Yeah, well, we'll have to. We can't make this our last.
that's
fun.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you got other stuff you got to get to?
I guess I'm off this afternoon, so
When are you
gonna wrap
leaving?
up. Probably shortly.
Okay. Okay, then let's wrap up.
Yeah, sure.
All right, man.
Man, it's been fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, till next time.
Okay, till next time. All right, see you, kids.
See you, folks.